Thank you for joining me. Scott Ryan here. Well, we pretty much know that the consensus is in. Barack Obama got his ass beaten before about 65, 70 million people last night in the debate. And it's no surprise because it's a lot easier to lie about people and make up stories when you're putting out a commercial and taking speeches out of context and putting up pictures while you write the false narrative. It's another thing to have them standing there right in front of you, looking you in the eye while you're in front of an audience and 70 million people watching. So it was interesting. I expected more of Barack Obama because I had seen him debate Alan Keyes in that Illinois senatorial debate when Alan Keyes jumped in the race after Jack Ryan was exposed by the Obama administration for his indiscretions, to speak euphemistically. Nevertheless, he seemed to hold up better against Keyes back then, but clearly last night, whole different story. Back then in Illinois, there was no story. Nobody knew who the guy was. They could make up whatever they wanted. Now he has to take some responsibility for his actions. He wasn't the blank slate that he was in 2008. But I have some very serious concerns. One thing, if we're all talking about some of the things that he did in the debate, Obama did, that were really amateurish and petty. But one thing that stood out to me was the exchange that he had toward the end, where he castigated Jim Lehrer, the PBS moderator, for interrupting him. And the way that he said it, there was this glare in his eyes and the tone in his voice. It was so acrimonious. It was shocking. It was like the demon inside of him just couldn't, it slipped out. It also sounded like he might have been confusing Lehrer with his wife. I mean, I could see him talking to Michelle that way. But nevertheless, he said something about Jim Lehrer interrupting him. He had 5 seconds left before you. I had 5 seconds left before you interrupted me. But it was just, you got to replay that. There was something extremely revealing. You could see into the soul almost. They say the eyes are the window of the soul. That's somewhat of maybe a platitude, but in this case, there was something that went on there, something revealing. We got a glimpse of something chilling. But I'm here thinking about, I've been concerned for our national security under this guy for the last several years, obviously. Systematically, he's doing every single thing that he can do to take away our constitutional rights as Americans. He's waged war on us, on our values, and everything that made this country what it is. And most recently, he's out there apologizing to the terrorists who killed our ambassador, and he's blaming his American citizens. He's blaming us, his constituents, for having our Constitution and exercising constitutional rights. This guy is one evil SOB. He always has been. But now when I think about the psyche of somebody as arrogant as this guy, who just 4 years ago, he was literally being worshipped as the Messiah, standing before hundreds of thousands of people, crowds, in front of Greek pillars with giant screens with his face on it, being worshipped by the sycophants, the David Gregorys, the Chris Matthews, the Andrea Mitchells, the Brian Williams, worshiping the guy, literally on their knees, breaking their knee pads out for him. Nobody in this country, if not the world, since maybe Alexander the Great, have been worshipped like this. And to think that this guy has been on this pedestal for doing nothing, for never accomplishing anything other than getting elected with their help, for him to come from that high to now, today, being bandied about in such a way as to declare him a glass jaw paper champion, to have all of his inadequacies vented constantly everywhere in the media, to be the scorn and laughing stock of this country. When you take somebody with that kind of arrogance, and we know what kind of arrogance he has, you could see it in his eyes, you see it in his actions for the last 4 years. It's dangerous. It is a very serious concern. when you consider the power that this guy has. I mean, this guy is the commander-in-chief of our military. And we already know what contempt and insolence he has for Americans and for Christians and for our Constitution. Now, coupled with that humiliation, I am very concerned. It reminds me of the movie The Last King of Scotland, where the Ugandan dictator, Amin, he took power back in the early 1970s after a coup d'etat overthrew the previous government. Everybody was all excited and worshiping this dictator. He was going to restore them to some golden age, if they ever had one there. Much like this, because Barack Obama is basically, I've always said for years, he is a third world dictator. He is like somebody, whenever somebody is brought to power like that, with no substance, and given that kind of power, out of nothing but pure adulation, nothing on which to base it, no record, it's going to end in a third world dictator fashion. And if you look at how that story ends, as many regimes have ended, it's scary. It's chilling. Because we're talking a third world dictator right now in charge of our country who was not vetted at all, to the disgrace of these people who call themselves journalists, like Andrea Mitchell, Brian Williams, Chris Matthews, David Gregory, and so on. They will go down in infamy regardless for breaking out the knee pads in the way that they have. They are a joke. Their parents should be forever disgraced, those who still have parents alive out of the aforementioned litany. But I'm worried for America, because this guy's going to become unglued. He is not ready for prime time. Keep an eye on Obama and pray for this country. Thank you for joining me. I'm Scott Ryan.